This is Neil Spelson, Red Rover, on the University of Texas campus. This is a warning to the citizens of Austin. Stay away from the university area. And there is a sniper on the university tower firing at will.
As the bodies began to fall, reporters and cameramen from KTBC Channel 7 began to get word that something was happening on campus.
So we got back to the station and walked into the foyer of the station and looked down, and there was a picture of the top of the UT tower, very shaky, just going up and down as if it were being shot from a long distance. And we looked at it, and we looked over at the phone receptionist like, what's going on? And that's when she told us that somebody was up on top of the tower firing at people. And we both just looked at each other and just took off upstairs to start grabbing camera equipment. And we were coming downstairs when Charles Ward, who was another one of the reporters, who was off duty. He did the evening news, and he was, of course, off duty at that time of day, but he'd heard it on his television, and he'd come running over, and we met him in the foyer, and Charles was in the National Guard with some of the rest of us, and he had grabbed his steel helmet that he'd been issued, so he was wearing a steel pot helmet, which we thought was a little over the top at the time, but that's what he wanted to do. So we all piled into one of the vehicles and took off over to the campus. We worked our way up the South Mall, under the trees again, and finally got up to Batts Hall and went up to the, I guess, the second floor. Up to this time, we could see people hiding behind trees, sitting there. I stuck the camera out the window and started shooting the footage that you've probably seen before of the tower with the puffs of smoke coming up where people were shooting. And I flipped on the camera, and I remember thinking at the time, it was sort of detached. I mean, it was as if we're watching it on TV. And then I started getting this peculiar feeling that a number of people have described later, that I could see him, therefore, theoretically, he could see me. And I got this almost crawly feeling on me, like you know, the gun sights on me or something like that.
I then jumped into a mobile unit myself and rushed to the campus and started broadcasting live. Interestingly, I saw several citizens of Austin dressed in normal shirt sleeves and khaki pants, carrying high-powered weapons, running toward me and running toward the campus. Well, what happened, they were citizens who heard the broadcast and heard me say, stay away, but their instinctive reaction was to the contrary. They grabbed their own deer rifles that they had, rushed to the campus, and started firing at the sniper, almost like a vigilante effort. In retrospect, a lot of folks were critical of these average citizens coming out with a weapon and engaging in a firefight with a madman. But I looked at it totally differently. These guys who fired at the top of the tower, when they turned their weapons toward the tower, they pinned Charles Whitman down. And after his initial surge, where he did most of his damage, up until the time he was actually killed, the latter part of that time frame, maybe as much as 30, 45 minutes, he did very little damage. One, because people were hiding and people were staying out of the way, but two, because he was pinned down by these citizens who were shooting back at him, along with a few of the police officers who got their own weapons that they had at home.
One of the first police officers to arrive on campus was 22-year-old Billy Speed. Officer Speed, seen here crouching down and below a statue of Jefferson Davis, must have assumed he was covered by the thick limestone railings. Officer Speed assumed he was safe. But Whitman, warming to his game, proved him wrong. Whitman's first shot missed, but a second round hit Officer Speed in the shoulder and tore into his chest. Students frantically tried to help the officer. He was loaded into one of the first ambulances to arrive, taken to Brackenridge Hospital, but was dead on arrival. In the days following, KTBC produced and aired a 30-minute special on the Whitman murders. With Neil Spelson in the anchor chair, the program featured this interview filmed live during the shooting.
Countless students and innocent bystanders fell without knowing what hit them. A boy riding a bicycle was picked off with deadly accuracy. Time and time again, men risked their lives to try to save others, and this man shown here hauling a dead man to safety was one such man. Charles Ward talked with him after he got back.
One of those who is out of breath now after running out onto the mall rescuing those who have been shot is Brian Ellison of Austin, who has been in Vietnam and has been back for 2 years. Brian, how many have you gone out to rescue?
Today, 2.
What did you have to do?
Run hard and keep low.
Did you have any trouble getting them up, or did any shots come close to you while you were out there?
No shots came close to me, just the last one. He was dead. He was dead weight. He was a little hard to pick up, too limp. Not like someone who's knocked out.
How many have you seen that are dead today?
Just one. I hope not anymore.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is a KLRN News Bulletin. Once again, a sniper has taken up a position on the observation deck, on the tower, on the main building, on the campus of the University of Texas, and is firing with his high-powered rifle at people on the campus.
As the tower's chimes sounded out the noon hour, the city of Austin began to witness the siege live on television. The public broadcasting station, KLRN, made history that day by airing the sniper attacks live on television.
There he is, right in that hole.
What he was doing was so preposterous, no one could actually believe it was taking place. The program director figured that what we had was the possibility of a close-up view from our rear studio, because it was on Intercampus Drive. It was virtually across the driveway from the first floor, first ground level floor of the tower, and then above us, some 200 feet, was the top of the tower with the observation deck. We managed to find a lens that was used on a film camera, fixed it to our television camera, and aimed it out the back door at the top of the UT tower. It was broadcast. We were able to find in the close-up of the observation deck the blurred movement of someone moving around the tower.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can see the sniper if you look closely in the pothole at the bottom of the picture, just under the rim of the observation deck.
Later, we would find out that, yes, indeed, the networks and all the state TV stations had us tuned in and were carrying our broadcast.
Whitman was moving fast now. He transversed all 4 sides of the observation deck, but found his most fertile killing ground on the west side, facing the section of Guadalupe Street known to Austinites as the Drag. For many of those pinned down on the hot sidewalks and storefronts, life and death was a question of inches.
I had a standing lunch date with 2 of my old Longhorn band pals to meet at the Rexall drugstore at 11:20 every day, and then we'd sit there and eat hamburgers and Cokes, and like we said, we solved the problems of the world, you know. Lady at the cash register said, "You guys better not go out there, somebody's shooting a gun." And we remember, this was 1966. The whole concept of people just, somebody shooting people as a part of a mass murder situation just wasn't in the vocabulary of our mental landscape at that point, you know. And so, being the knowledgeable 20-year-olds we were, who know everything anyway, we just went right on outside and stood there. You know, I remember looking back after she said that, though, at the clock. It was 11:55. I remember that like it was yesterday. I turned back around for somebody. I faced the campus again, and no more than 15 seconds later, a high-powered rifle shot came past my right ear, and it hit a gentleman that was standing inside the lip of the newsstand right there. He was a 38-year-old military veteran with 6 children and a wife to support, and I didn't realize he'd gotten hit at that point because we were too busy running back inside the drugstore. I mean, we set a land speed record for getting back inside the drugstore, and that's where I stayed during the whole 90 minutes or so that were left in the whole rampage. At that point, I realized, boy, how close did I come, you know? I mean, I later retraced the whole situation, and I was about 4, he was about 4, maybe 5 feet to my right when he got hit, you know. He did live for like 2 more hours at Brackenridge. They had a team of surgeons trying to do what they could for him, but it was just too much damage to his midsection to fix him, you know.
The Drag quickly became a scene of horror. 17-year-old Karen Griffith, a beautiful young woman preparing for her senior year at Lanier High School, where Charles Whitman's wife Kathy had taught the year before, was walking north down Guadalupe when she was shot through the lung. transported to Brackenridge Hospital, Karen struggled for her life, but died 1 week later. In the spring of 1967, the Lanier High School Viking yearbook included a dedication to both Karen Griffith and Kathleen Whitman.
It's like a battle scene. It's like, there's another shot and another shot. There are two different kinds of shots. Apparently, police are returning the fire now. Gordon Wilkerson is watching the man through a telephoto lens on his camera, getting the shots and watching, and sees the person there. Gordon, is it possible to describe the person? What color shirt is he wearing? Is he a light shirt? You can't tell about his hair whether he's a dark-haired person or not. Is he wearing glasses? And is he light or fair-skinned? From this distance, Gordon Wilkerson reports fair skin.
There was kind of a small lull in the shooting and what have you, and I looked over to the left, and there was a big old lumbering armored car driving toward one of the bodies that was laying out in front of me. It was obvious what they wanted to try to do, because one of them was wounded laying there, and they were trying to scoop him up. In fact, there had been several people try to run out there, and not successful at all. In fact, they didn't get more than 2 or 3 steps, and decided that wasn't smart. He was really peppering that thing. It's kind of a surprise, but it's, I thought, well, at the time it's a pretty good idea, because nobody could get a tank from anywhere around in any timely fashion, so that's the next best thing, I guess. Try to save a life.
As was demonstrated repeatedly that day, Charles Whitman was an outstanding marksman. The farthest shot was Billy Snowden, a basketball coach who stopped into the barber shop for a haircut. Hearing shots, he and the barber stepped outside to investigate. From over 500 yards away, Whitman fired, hitting Snowden in the shoulder. Snowden would survive, but the nerve damage ended his basketball career. Whitman continued to demonstrate his prowess with shots so accurate and from such a distance, the victims never knew what hit them.
On August 1st, 1966, Roydell Schmidt and I were working partners. About 12:05, we got a call of partial no lights at a residence off of Red River Street. We came over to where the Chevrolet car was parked, kneeled down behind it, and looked up toward the tower. And at that time, this tree was a whole lot smaller, and there was just very little space between the lower limbs of this tree and the hood of that Chevrolet car. We stayed here approximately 5 to 10 minutes. Roydell said, "We better get out of here," I believe was the exact words. And just as Roydell started to stand up, he grabbed his stomach and said, "I'm hit, I'm hit." Well, I was on one side and Don Carlson was on the other side of Roydell, so we each grabbed him by the arm and pulled him back a little bit so that he would be shielded by the tree. And then I went over to the city vehicle, got a first aid kit, and called into the electric department dispatcher to send an ambulance. The ambulance pulled around the corner from 19th Street. They loaded him in the ambulance, and Don Carlson went to the hospital with him. I went back to the service building, and I was told then that Roydell had died on the way to the hospital.
As students ran for cover, Charles Whitman proved that no one was safe from his deadly skill with a rifle. 18-year-old freshman John Scott Allen and several young women ran to a window inside the Student Union building between the 2nd and 3rd floors. As they were indoors, the students assumed they had reached safety. They were wrong. As they peered out the east window towards the tower, Whitman was peering back. A bullet struck the side of the building and ricocheted through the window pane. The force of the bullet sent glass shards flying into the faces of the 2 girls, while the bullet itself struck John Allen's upper right arm. Within minutes, the landing was covered in blood.